Hello, my name is Reese Flowers. I'm an executive chef at Mount Carmel, New Albany Surgical Hospital, as well as the executive chef at St. Anne's Hospital, all part of the Mount Carmel system. Today I'll be showing you how to do the skillet apple pork chops. So I'll give you a rundown of the ingredients that we have here. I have some salt and black pepper, as well as some dried sage, but you'll be getting fresh sage in the baskets that you have to prepare this meal. I have some butter, some chicken stock, red onions, green apples, and I have bone-in pork chops, as well as some fresh rosemary. So we're gonna start with the green apples. I chose green apples just because they hold up well to high heat and they're very good. They'll have like a little bit of bite and al dente to them. They just cook well. These are great apples to be cooking with. Not to say that you can't use any other apples when you're cooking, but these are probably the best. So to begin, this is the easiest way I've seen to cut apples. So I cut very thinly the top off and the bottom off. If you're comfortable using a paring knife, you can peel the skin off of this all the way around, or you can use a peeler. Both work. Now that we've peeled our apples, we'll begin by cutting them. So you know that it has the seeds and the core in the middle. So the best way to go about it is to cut it like you do a square. Go all the way around the apples. You'll be left with this. I'd probably say it's about, depending on the size of the apple, 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch away from the top stem. And then from there, we're just going to cut thin slices. These as well, I would like to keep, you can keep them, I would say keep them about 1/4 inch thick, and then go from there. Now that we've got our apples cut and set to the side, we're going to start with our red onions. Similar process, except we're just not going to peel them. For cutting them, the way we're going to do like a julienne on them. So usually if you're cutting onions and you're dicing them, you keep the root end on, just so it doesn't bleed out and you don't cry as much. But for this, we're going to cut both ends off. Split it in half. Remove the skin. Sometimes it gets a little tough. If you need to, you can't get that skin, then just pull that one layer off. Set that to the side. And then from here, you just go straight down. And I would make these a lot thinner than you did your apples. Okay, now that we've got our apples and onions ready, I threw a nonstick pan on, a big one enough to hold enough servings for 4 pork chops. I'm getting that heated up real hot, but while we're doing that, I got some rosemary here, and we're just gonna take this as fresh rosemary. I'm just gonna take it right off the stem. About 2 sprigs should be enough. And then we're just going to take our knife and mince that up. I like to push it all together and bundle it as much as I can. Makes it easier to cut and saves you time. So I have 4 bone-in pork chops here. I chose the bone-in pork chops just because it seems to have a little bit more flavor. You can use something like a pork loin, pork tenderloin, whatever works for you. Just know that your cooking time may vary based on that. Anything that has a bone on it, it takes a little bit longer just because anything close to it, the bone has to heat before everything can cook through. So just keep that in mind. I chose this, but remember, you can use anything you want. So I'm gonna generously season these with, very simply, kosher salt, black pepper, add a little bit of oil to them. I will be adding oil to the pan as well, but this just helps it with the cooking process so that you avoid sticking. And make sure you do both sides. You're going to be cooking both sides, so you want to get all that. Add your oil according to your recipe. And you're going to look for just like a nice sheen. If it's hot enough, you should see a little bit of smoke come off the pan. But once that happens, you know you're ready for your pork chops. So once these are in the pan and they're working, just leave them alone. People think they got to be busy moving stuff around. You don't have to move anything around. When they're ready to come up, you'll know they'll be able to lift right up. I'm using a non-stick pan. You can use a non-stick pan. You can use a regular stainless steel skillet. You can use a cast iron skillet. Whatever works for you or whatever you're comfortable with is what I recommend you using. But do know this, if you're going to be using a non-stick pan, you'll see here I have a insulated whisk. I also have rubber tongs as well. That's so I don't scratch up the bottom of these pans, because if you do that in your cooking process, you'll get up all these bits and pieces that could end up in your food, and that's not good for you. So these have been cooking for about 3 minutes on one side. I've flipped them, and then we'll be transferring them to another pan to finish them in the oven. Generally, the temperature looking for when it comes to pork chops is about 145, 150. I like mine a little under that, but just to be on the safe side, that's 145, 150 is what you should be looking for. So I took the pork chops out just because they weren't at the temp I wanted them to be at. So what I did is I set them in the oven, 350. Should only take about 8 minutes. And once they come out, I'll be able to set them aside and then add them back to the pan once we've created our sauce to go with it. Now that we still have our hot pan, now's a good time to add all your herbs as well as your stock and Dijon mustard. So the rosemary that we chopped up, let that sizzle in the pan. I have the dried sage here, but this would be the same time you would add in your fresh sage as well. Going to add some of our onions and apples to this. And once all those things are combined, this is the part where we're going to add a little bit of our stock believe the recipe has for a half a cup. And Dijon mustard. Also, this is a good recipe if you're not using, if you don't want to eat pork, you can also use chicken thighs. It seems to pair well with those ingredients as well, or that ingredient in particular. So with the sauce, with the stock, with the Dijon mustard, everything incorporated, you should have like a very good consistency of almost like a gravy. The thing that you're going to look for is you'll take like a spoon, add it in there, pull it out, and it should coat the spoon. This is a French term called nappe. That means you know you have a consistency that means to coat, which means if it coats the spoon, it's going to coat the food that you're cooking as well. So we've got our pork chops out of the oven. They're at the temp that we need them to be. From there, we're just going to add them right back to our sauce. They'll absorb all the flavors from this, and if you feel like you don't have enough, if you have more Dijon and you've got more stock, please feel free to add that to there. If you didn't want to use chicken stock, you can use vegetable stock. And any of this stuff that you have reserved, don't throw it out. It's very highly recommended that you can freeze it. The best thing to do, what we like to do, is we'll put it in ice cube trays. That way, whenever you need some, like even if it's a small amount, just like we used for this, you can pop ice cube out, throw it in there, let it melt. You've got instant stock for that. So keep that in mind. And here's the end result, our beautiful skillet apple pork chops.
Hi, my name is Amy Shea, and I'm nutrition faculty with Mount Carmel College of Nursing. Today we're going to discuss the skillet apple pork chops that you just saw prepared by Chef Reese. I really love apples, especially this time of year. We're getting into fall, and they're one of my most favorite fall foods. So I put together a slide for you guys talking about the health benefits of apples. I know we all think about how, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but do we really understand what's going on and why apples are so healthy? They are actually one of the top 3 fruits produced worldwide. They're easy to store, easy to transport, easy to eat, right? You don't really need to do a lot to eat an apple, but they have a lot of good nutrition. So I think we can examine that. The first thing I wanted to mention is how apples are rich in a compound called quercetin, and that's a flavonoid that actually has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. So it has a lot of good benefits for the body. It may actually help protect the cells of the pancreas and therefore decrease risk of type 2 diabetes. And in the Women's Health Study, participants who consumed 1 or more apples a day had a 28% reduction in risk of type 2 diabetes as compared to those who did not consume any apples. So there you go. An apple a day helps keep the doctor away, I suppose. The next thing apples provide are fiber. In particular, they have a type of soluble fiber called pectin. And we've talked about fiber previously, and fiber helps to decrease that bad cholesterol, your LDL cholesterol, and therefore it can have a protective effect when it comes to heart disease and stroke risk. So we want to eat that healthy apple for our heart health. Another thing that fiber from the apples can do is they can actually help slow digestion, which can improve satiety, another word for fullness, and that can help you feel full longer after eating. So it may help with preventing weight gain. And studies have shown that people who consume more apples and pears have that increased fullness and have less weight gain over time. Another thing that's beneficial about the fiber from apples is that it can feed the good bacteria that live inside of our gut. And when you're feeding those good bacteria, that can help with decreasing risk for GI or gastrointestinal diseases and also for cancers of the GI tract. So I think you can see lots of the wonderful benefits of eating apples if you didn't know already. And one thing I do want to stress, I know in the video you saw Chef Reese was peeling the apples, but I would recommend that you eat the peel. It's not going to, affect this recipe. It's going to be delicious with the peel. If you peel it, you're going to lose a lot of these nutrients that I've just been describing. So keep that peel on, and I hope you enjoy this delicious recipe.